Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Spring I Am Norm Round Robin. It's currently 11:15 o'clock at night. I have just gotten home and I finished 2 rounds. I'm going to make the recap of one of the rounds, and then the round after that will come out tomorrow morning because we're on that grind. Just to let you know a little bit about how this works. So apologies if my hair's all over the place, if my voice is gone. I get home, I eat some food, I hang out with Lucy, and then I make these recaps. So the 6th round of action, I'm playing against Gabriela Antova. She is an FM as well as a WIM. Her rating is like close to 2,300, but she's been over 2,300. Big game for me. I've got white. I won a nice game last night, so I'm gonna push for a win. And you're gonna obviously figure out why the recap's called what it's called. So before the round, I knew that Gabriela likes to play the Slav defense. Particularly she's played it in this tournament, but also it seems like she plays the semi-Slav. And I could have gone for this, but I haven't reviewed semi-Slav theory in a very long time, and I don't want to wing it in an opening that's so cutting edge. So instead, I predicted what she would do against c4, and this was actually the first success, but also at the same time, the first reason of this game why I completely hate chess. Let me tell you why. So I knew she was going to go e5. And against this, I was thinking whether to play the 4 knights or to play g3. I played this a couple rounds earlier, so I figured she might prepare for this move order. And against this, she doesn't play c6, d5, but rather knight f6 and d5, which is one of the main lines. Black just, attacks the center like this, oftentimes rotates the knight to b6, plays knight c6, develops the bishop, etc. There's a lot of ways white can play this, sometimes with knight c3, sometimes without. So, for example, white can play like this. And then play like b3, bishop b2. I decided to play the most forcing line, which is moving the knight, castles, bishop e7, and now a3. There's a lot of theory here and a lot of different setups with d3 and, a3 and b4 or b3, bishop b2, etc. Magnus has played many of these lines with the white pieces. So before the game, I actually knew everything that was going to happen up until this point. a3 is one of the main lines to try to play b4. Castles, b4, bishop e6, and rook b1. And this is a major tabia. There is so much theory here. And the game that I looked at before this game was the game Carlsen-Kramnik London Chess Classic Round 1, 2009. And in that game, we had f6, d3. This is generally considered the major setup. And now black tries to equalize the game by playing knight d4 or a5, b5, knight d4. And I think that game went knight d2, queen c8 defending the pawn, and, having bishop h3 opportunities, this. And, I had prepared all of this. Literally all of it. It's pretty wild. It was I think knight d6, bishop b2, a4, something with, rook f c1, rook f d8. I'm going. I think this is how that game went. I had 20 moves of prep, and I watched how Magnus won the game, and I studied a few other games. But of course, I knew something else could happen. For example, I actually found one game that she played online where at some point she played the move a6, and I think a6 is not accurate because it weakens b6. So, for example, I will have opportunities like this. And I think in general, white's game plan here is to play knight e4 and then knight c5. And I just don't think that the move b5, a6 deals with knight e4, knight c5 very well. But, I didn't think she was going to play it necessarily, but I had a look because I found one blitz game that she played in this position, and she played the move a6. And I know that f6 is the way to go. At least that's what I thought. But she plays a6. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay, so I blitz my next move, knight e4, to go knight c5. Now, this is part 1 of why I hate chess. It turns out that when I was reviewing my notes and all the deep complexities of this position, I had reviewed the move a6 after these 2 moves were included. And this is a substantial difference because black has already committed to moving the pawn to f6 and will not go f5. In the game a6, d3, black can play f5 now. And it's just a totally different flavor of position. You can't go knight e4, so, black's trying to attack you. And I blanked on that. And I played knight e4 because in the position that I had analyzed prior, this is where you play knight e4, and this is very good for white because you're trying to go to c5. The difference here is that she hasn't committed her f-pawn. So here she played a fascinating idea. She played bishop a2, which the intention is to move the bishop back to d5, targeting my weak knight, but first kick my rook out. So either make my rook kind of dumb placed right here on b2, or make my rook go off the b file, which is where it wanted to be. I mean, the whole point was, you know, I would have a rook here. I don't have a rook there anymore, so knight d7, and I can't take the pawn. So when she played bishop a2, I had a suspicion I did something wrong. But I couldn't exactly remember what it was. I discovered it after the game. It was with d3 and f6 included. So I played rook a1, she played here. And I had a couple of different ideas here. First of all, if I go back, we have the exact same position we just had, but my rook is on a different square. So literally, the position that we just had right here, a couple of moves ago, would have repeated itself, except my bishop would have been on a worse square. So I didn't like that very much. And I thought about queen c2, but I thought f5 was just way too good. I didn't really know what to do. If I played knight c5, I thought she could just go e4 anyway, and then bishop f6, and then even trap my rook. The only reason this isn't completely lost is I get enough activity. So I have a pawn for the rook, but I mean, you know, I didn't like it, so I decided to play d3, and I was 100% convinced here that she was going to play f5, and Stockfish does think this is the best move, and play gets really crazy here. So, for example, knight c5, e4. I was contemplating taking or just going here and then sacrificing my rook. So again, this is something that actually could have occurred. And I would have spent the game pressuring her light squares. And despite being down a rook for a bishop, my position's actually not so bad. But then she shocked me, and she took my knight. And the reason I didn't think that she was going to do this is because it just kind of kills the game. Like, that's it. I mean, we trade queens. I just didn't think she would do this, and I was like, I have the bishop pair. My bishop is so active. You know, I'll move my bishop. I'll reroute my knight. I'll put some pressure on her queen side. She played rook d8, and I'm just sitting there like, I have nothing. She killed all my fun. You know, I should have definitely thought about the fact that she actually could just straight up take the knight. Of course, in hindsight, you know, I play something else, such as knight c5. I guess I should have gone knight c5. I decided not to. I thought the position was just too hectic, and I thought, you know, d3 f5 knight c5 is better. But yeah, here we are, rook d8, and you know, I play rook d3. Anytime you have rooks facing each other on a straightaway like this, it's good to kind of be the one getting taken to improve your position. And she played knight c4, and I realized that the second that she played knight c4 that I was in trouble, because her plan here is to play b5, a5. She can't just go a5, so just so you understand, because then I would go here. So she wants to play b5, freeze my pawn, and then play a5 and attack me. And I just do not have a good position here. It's not good. This is not a pleasant situation to be in. Now, I find, you know, so I was contemplating rook b1, rook a2, and bishop h3 to go to d7, and basically just be there to kind of, you know, hit at the knight. So I played rook a2 because I thought that going to c2 made sense. In hindsight, I really regretted playing rook a2 instead of playing rook b1, and I will show you why. And I played rook a2, she played b5, and I went bishop h3. So as it turns out, bishop h3 is actually a massive mistake. In fact, even here, I blundered bishop takes b4. I mean, this is like the last thing that I'm ever thinking about here. The point is that there's a b4, I'm forked, we trade rooks, and I play rook a4, and she brings the rook down, and apparently this position is very good for black. So Stockfish just thinks that you can play even something like c5, and my bishop is stuck. I literally just stuck. So it's yeah, I did not see this. But Stockfish did. She missed it too. In fact, she missed it a second time, and I missed it a second time. She had this opportunity 2 times. And yeah, I mean, neither one of us even remotely considered that. I didn't even see that this was possible. So, this is one of those moments where it's like mutual blindness, and it just happens. I mean, it's very easy when you watch with Stockfish, when you have to make your own moves, it's significantly harder. Some people combine Stockfish with playing their own moves. Those people end up in my videos and then end up getting banned. So my intention was to meet a5 with bringing my bishop to d7. But I still thought this position was wildly unpleasant. I mean, just putting the knights in the middle, I mean, these knights in my face, like, it's not good. She plays a5, I play bishop d7, and here I was convinced she was going to sack and then play a b4, and look how wild this gets. So I can't take, and this is why I regretted not putting my rook there, because I can't take. So this is a fork, but this is a violent counterattack, and the threat of a fork still exists. And I was looking at this position like, what the hell is going on? Luckily, I'm surviving, and this is like totally fine. And I thought maybe the game would get exciting. But she just played such a cold-blooded move here, just knight back to a7. I thought this was wrong because it just felt wrong, like moving backwards, blocking your rook, but I'm sort of stuck. And rook c2 is a pawn sack, so I'm giving away this, but I'm targeting the knight, which is defended by the pawn. So after this, I now go here, and we have a big trade, and bishop back to d6. And at this point, I knew the evaluation was probably 0.00. It is. If anybody's playing for a win, it's white, but it's very little chances. Black is very well defended. The only chance that I can break through is d4, and like that will make the position even more symmetrical. So I figured, but she was getting low on time. She was playing very slowly, and she looked very frustrated. So I was like, I'm just gonna play. Probably what I should have done here is play g4. What you should do here is you should consider how the opponent wants to set up their pawns. And she wants to play f6 and maybe h5. This is very common, to like move this to defend the center and just instigating with flank pawns. So again, if you let one side advance to h6, that side now immediately has the advantage, because again, h7 is always going to be a weakness, or you're threatening to split the pawns. So flank pawn infiltrations are very useful in endgames, also improving the king. And it's never too late to blunder. So for example, here, if I try to, sack and go for a fork, oh, I'm so smart. She just plays rook a1. And I'm checked. And, if I take either piece, I'm just in check. So something like king g2, f6, rook b5, rook c1. Right? So it's never too late to do something stupid. So sometimes we take it for granted, these kind of positions. I tried to slowly improve my position and delay the move d4 as much as I could to try to get her lower on time. And then I even didn't go for a symmetrical endgame of bishops. I even gave her my bishop. And my goal here was, have the knight. And knights are tricky with low time. I'm going to get in here. Maybe I'm going to take the bishop. Maybe I'm going to get my rook to the b file somehow and attack this pawn. But she did a good job. She played rook a5. I went in here, and I thought maybe I would like sneak in and cause some problem. Oh, what am I doing? Sorry. I would sneak in and cause some problems. But there's just... Black position is resilient here. I mean, there's not a whole lot to do. And she even did a good thing. She planted the bishop to defend the pawn on a more active diagonal. So this was very nifty by her to play rook a5, bishop c5, bishop b6. I was very frustrated here. I just can't break through. And she just goes here. And again, I can create play under normal circumstances. I really wouldn't. But she had low time. I just played, I just played on. I played g4. I got my knight out of the way of the bishop, and I was trying to advance, but it's not much advancing to do. And she did very well. Well-timed counter pawn break. And I kept the game going for as long as I could. There was like one trap I set here for her. For example, if she took on h5, I thought maybe this was unpleasant for black because the king is completely cut off. There's ways you can try to make this unpleasant, and you can always... accidentally end up in an endgame as black, like where you're just like losing. Oh, I guess there's rook h7, so this is kind of stupid. But let's just say, let's just, for the sake of instructional value, like, this is kind of unpleasant. I don't think it's losing, but it's unpleasant. It's hard to defend with low time. Your king is cut off. But yeah, I mean, not much else to say. We played and we got into a rook endgame, and she had like 1 or 2 minutes on the clock. So I played for way longer than necessary, but game ended here. She was going to check me and then ultimately win my pawn. So we made a draw. This was such a weird game. Honestly, it was a long game, but it felt like nothing. I mean, like literally nothing. And it was kind of frustrating to have worked on like an opening that I wanted to use and kind of dive deep into the intricacies of, immediately screw it up because of a small move order nuance, but I guess you live and you learn. And just, you know, we didn't play theory. Like I literally predicted everything that was going to happen and then messed up anyway. And then had like a relatively unpleasant middle game. She made one inaccuracy. I got back into the game. So, yeah, not the most exciting recap in the world. You know, most of these are 20 to 25 minutes, but that's all I have to say about this game. So we draw. Never in a whole lot of danger, although bishop takes b4 was pretty savage. Let's try to bounce back in round 7, get a big win with black over Vlado, the gentleman from Bosnia, and then we are playing 2 more games. But in reality, I'm saying that even though I'm sitting here and I've already finished my round 7 game, but I'm not going to tell you what happened. You'll just have to wait for tomorrow morning's recap. And if you're already watching 12 hours in the future, they're both out. Anyway, folks, appreciate you very much. Won't take up too much of your time. I'm going to go shower and sleep. Good night. See you for round number 7. Get out of here.